Good afternoon and welcome to Politics and the Pulpit. I am your holy host, Pastor Jerry Cook, here coming live to you in studio from your hometown station, AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. Good afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day, and the sun is finally out here in Southern California. Man, it has been a strange June, and it almost seems like we've been living in Seattle, or at least coastal, for the last couple of weeks. This means that we'll have a lot shorter summer than we've probably planned on, but hey, what can we say? At least we don't have to use our air conditioning, and we don't have these $500 to $700 electric bills every month. So, hey, what can we say? The June gloom is nice. I want to quickly give a shout-out to Joe Messina, who sat in for me last Wednesday. I had a funeral to do in the morning that kind of kept me from coming this way in the afternoon. So thank you, Joe, the Italian stallion, for sitting in for me. We have a great show on tap for you today. I want to give you just a quick lineup of what we're going to be dealing with, and Lord willing, we'll be able to get through all of this. But the first thing I want to deal with in a little bit is dealing with the FBI redacting potential bribery calls between Biden and former Burisma executive. That, of course, has been in the news, along with this little thing called the indictment of the former President Trump. Obviously, that has made some news here in the last 24 hours, and I've had a chance to actually read the 37 indictments against him, and they're rather interesting. So I might have a bit of a commentary on that in just a few moments. Also, I wanted to deal with a video that we'll be listening to in a little bit here from Josh Hawley. He's a great senator from the state of Missouri, and he was grilling Deputy Director Paul Abate, I don't know, Abbate, however you pronounce that guy's last name, concerning bias in the FBI, and it's a clip of about 2 minutes and 50 seconds, and we'll be listening to that in just a few minutes. And then at the bottom of the hour, we will be joined live and in studio with a acquaintance of mine named David Barlavi. Barlavi ran for city council here in Santa Clarita in 2022. I think he came in 6th, 7th, or 8th, something like that. Now, David is a leftist. He likes cigars, he likes communism, and he likes, what's the other third? Cuba. He likes cigars, Cuba, and communism, not exactly in that order. But David and I asked him to come in because I wanted to demonstrate to some in my audience that we can be on polar opposites when it comes to political things, polar opposites when it comes to religious things, but yet we can still be civil and, like each other, especially if he's paying for lunch. So we'll have David coming in here in about 20 minutes or so, live and in studio. Now, first thing I want to do, very briefly, before I deal with the FBI and this whole redacting situation, is I'd like to give a quick shameless plug to an event that's happening on Sunday, June 25th at 2 p.m. This is something that is being done through the Freedom Fighters of Santa Clarita Valley, and this will be at Central Park. Again, this is Sunday, June 25th at 2 p.m. This means that you all will be able to attend church on Sunday morning, and then in the afternoon, maybe have some lunch, and then head over to the park. And again, this is a free event. This is a nonpartisan event. If you love the Constitution, if you love conservatism, if you love freedom, I'd encourage you to be there. I think most of us can agree with that. I hope that's still all nonpartisan. And so, again, that's being put on by the Freedom Fighters of SCV. Yours truly will be saying a few things at this event. And there will be other individuals as well, including, I believe, and again, don't quote me on this, this is what I heard, and I don't know if this is all set in stone yet, but I believe Jonathan Natami, running for L.A. District Attorney, will be there. I believe possibly, perhaps Mayor Gibbs will be there, and a few other dignitaries as well. So if that's something that you can do, and you are available June 25th at 2 p.m. to come to Central Park, would love to have you there. The more, the merrier. Also, next Wednesday, we will be joined in studio by the aforementioned Mayor Jason Gibbs, as we will be talking about the redistricting that occurred here in our valley for the city council vote that is coming up, and also inflation, the crime rates, things of that nature here in Santa Clarita, and how that is affecting us here, which of course it's not affecting us as much as other places. In many ways, we thank God we live here in Santa Clarita, but we'll be asking Mayor Gibbs about some of those things next Wednesday. I encourage you to listen in on those shows. So, if you haven't heard, or if your head has been stuck in the dirt the last couple of days, the former President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, probably the most researched, the most sought-after individual since 2015 in politics that I have ever seen, probably next to Hillary Clinton, has essentially put in a plea of not guilty and has had a federal indictment brought upon him. And this, of course, leads us to a lot of questions in terms of what's going on in our country. Is this fair? Is there a two-tiered system of government and justice? I mean, all this stuff is happening in our minds, and what is the truth? How do we fetter through the truth? How do we discern the truth in all of this? All I can tell you is this. This is just from the observations and musings of a pastor and a dad. Ever since 2015, there has been like this vendetta against him. Now, granted, he is a bull in a china closet. Granted, he says things that he probably should not say, and he probably did some things with these documents that probably he should not have done, whether they were, formally okayed by him or not as president. I'm not sure of all that. And again, I read the indictment. Seems pretty thorough, and really, if guys like Jonathan Turley and a few others who I trust on these issues say, listen, if he's indicted, if one of these indictments is able to go through, he's going to be in jail for a long time. Now, I don't know if he's actually going to go to jail, because I really think that if they do that, that might open a huge Pandora's box when it comes to Biden, which we'll talk about here in just a few minutes, and Hillary Clinton, because there's all this comparison being made between what Hillary did with her server a few years ago and the bleaching of the computer stuff and all the stuff that she did, and how James Comey treated that situation in 2016 with this. Some people are saying it's a fair comparison. Some people are saying it's an unfair comparison. I don't know. I don't have that type of an analytical mind to be able to distinguish all those little nuances. But I can say this. It does seem that there is an out for Donald J. Trump. And it happened when he announced in 2015, all through his campaign against Hillary, and then he was dogged and plagued through his entire 4-year first term in office. We all know now, being that hindsight is 2020, that the Russian collusion was indeed a hoax. All of that has essentially been found out. So yeah, he was plagued, and then even after he left office, he has been plagued. And of course, I believe it's all part of the plan to either get him to be either get Trump to step down as the potential nominee for the Republican Party, which I don't see him doing because he has probably more pride than all of the transvestites in all of California. But I also think that they're trying to dissuade 15 to 20% of the electorate, should he become the nominee, that this automatically goes to the Democrats in 2024. Now I'm going to give you my thoughts real quickly. I do think that if he's the nominee, barring some sort of miracle of God, if he's the nominee, something weird is going to happen. I can't make any predictions right now. I just think something's going to happen. I do think they're trying to keep him from that. But if he's not the nominee, and it seems to the Republicans that the Democrats are essentially choosing their nominee for 2024, because to a large percentage of the Republican Party, anybody but Trump is a second-tiered individual. I mean, if you think guys like myself are going to vote for what's his name? The guy from Alabama, Asa Hutchinson, the governor. You really think we're going to vote for that guy? I mean, come on, man. The guy's milquetoast. We're not going to vote for him. We're not going to vote for these country club Mitt Romney, John McCain-esque Republicans that maybe we did pre-2015, that we settled for. No, not anymore. And so if Trump is not the nominee, I do believe there is going to be a revolt. And as soon as Trump is not the nominee, you might as well mark it down. Barring some miracle of God, the Democrats have gotten in the bag. And I hate to say that because I know that the last couple of years have been really tough under Biden, and they're going to increasingly get worse and ratcheted up ahead of 2024. And if they win in 24 going into 25, they're going to be emboldened like you will not believe. Yesterday I was listening to C-SPAN, and they were showing some of the live hearings with the FBI. And Josh Hawley, of course, who is one of my favorite senators from the state of Missouri, I think that's the show me state, if I'm not mistaken, was grilling the Deputy Director, Paul Abate, concerning bias in the FBI. And here's just a small clip of a broader clip that hopefully will give you some context. Shane.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Abate, let me just stay with you. You just started to answer Senator Blackburn's question that not releasing the 1023 or talking about it as a matter of life and death. Question of life and death, you said. Explain.
It is potentially a question of life and death
For whom?
With regard to the source of the information.
So now we've confirmed that the document exists. That's progress because the FBI director initially denied that it exists. Why did he do that?
We have already and previously acknowledged the existence of the documents.
Yeah, after you first denied it. Now, when a member of this committee read it, right, the FBI director, let's just get the record straight. The FBI director initially said it doesn't exist. Then Senator Grassley said, I've read it. Then he said, oh, okay, well, gotcha. I guess it does exist. Now you're going back and forth with members of this committee what's in it. Why don't you just release it? Is it classified?
The document is not classified.
Okay. Will you commit to releasing it?
Senator, we'll take that back and we will work with you in this committee.
How about just a yes or no? Will you commit to releasing this unclassified document that alleges that the President of the United States has taken $5 million or more in bribes from a foreign nation?
The document has already been released pursuant to a subpoena to the House Oversight Committee.
Has it been released to this committee?
We'll work with this committee within the parameters that are established to meet the request.
Will you release the document to the public? It's unclassified. Don't you think the American people have a right to see it?
Senator, the document, as you know, contains sensitive information that has bearing on the life of the source of the information, potentially.
You can redact the source's name. We do this all the time.
In some instances, Senator, and I know you know this, that is not sufficient to protect people. And that's what we strive and work to do each and every day. And I hope you would take that seriously, too.
Oh, I take it very seriously.
Well, the video goes on. It's about a 6-minute and 50-second video. You can actually watch it on YouTube. I think it's on The Hill, and Forbes might have a section of it. Well, or if you go on to Town Hall or The Right Scoop, I think they've got a clip of it. But it goes on to basically say that the excuse from the FBI is going to be that the reason why it's all redacted, and the reason why they have it redacted is because they're trying to somehow keep the informant safe. And of course, this is stuff that we've done for decades and decades and decades. We've been able to redact names and sources in order to keep those sources safe. Now, the Trump indictment notwithstanding, let's just talk very briefly before our break here about the potential, and again, I don't know yet, but the potential of our sitting president being guilty of having money funneled to him while VP and perhaps maybe even as president from a board that his son Hunter was a part of. Now, if you remember during the campaign, they asked President Biden. They said, hey, do you have any dealings with your son, with Burisma? And of course, he emphatically and clearly said no. I've got an article here, hat tip, the town hall. Katie Pavlich wrote this. It says, quote, testifying in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee Tuesday afternoon, FBI Director Paul Abate admitted agents at the federal law enforcement blacked out information in a FD 1023 report eventually given to the House Oversight Committee showing President Joe Biden engaged in 2 phone calls, and by the way, now we know it's more than that, with a former Burisma executive while he was vice president. That executive allegedly offered Biden and his son Hunter, who served on the Burisma board while his father was in charge of the Ukraine portfolio under President Barack Obama, monies. And then it goes on to say, Abate goes on to say, quote, we often redact documents to protect sources and methods. And this, of course, was under questioning from Senator Marsha Blackburn, who actually came right before Josh Hawley. And then it says, so you choose to redact the fact that there are 17 voice recordings, 2 of them with the now president. You chose to redact that and not give it to the House Oversight? The document was redacted to protect the source, Abate followed up. And, of course, we heard that in the discourse between Josh Hawley and Abate himself. Now, here's the thing. Wouldn't you like to know, isn't there enough intellectual curiosity out there? Obviously, there's tons of it on the left and even some on the right when it comes to former President Trump. But shouldn't there be just about as equal scrutiny when it comes to the current sitting president of the United States? I mean, if there's something happening, if there's money being passed through the hands, and if there's been some sort of agreement for foreign information or what have you, some secret information, wouldn't you like to know this? And again, I think it's fair that as much as I don't like to think it's fair, I think it's still fair to go ahead and go after Trump. Go ahead. He's going to have his day in court, and I guess we shall see. But I also think that the Republicans, both in the Senate and in the House, need to aggressively, even more so than they are, go after what is going on here between Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and the Burisma executive. There are all kinds of weird things here that just stink to high heaven that, frankly, I think we as citizens should know. And if we had a media that was at least 1/3 curious about Biden as they are towards Trump, I believe that if Biden were a Republican, the kind of Republican that I would like to see in the White House, that this would have been a dealt with thing. There would have already been an impeachment. He would have been ran out of office for half of what Biden has been blamed for. But we shall see, because obviously we have a media and an FBI that is holding water for our current president. And that is unfortunate on the greatest nation on God's green earth. When we come back here on Politics in the Pulpit, we're going to be joined in studio by my friend David Barlavi. And we'll be talking a little bit about, hey, we disagree on some things, but hey, we can still be friends. And I think that's a good demonstration to you guys out there that we don't necessarily have to see the other guy on the other side as a mortal enemy. So listen back here on Politics in the Pulpit on your hometown station. We'll see you in a minute. All right, we're back here live. This is your holy host, Pastor Jerry Cook, with Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station, AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. As promised at the top of the hour, we are now at the bottom of the hour, and I have in studio, as promised, live and here to my right, which I'm sure he probably finds ironic. But I'm to his left, so that's another ironic part of it. David Barlavi is a tax attorney at Law Office of David Barlavi right here in Santa Clarita. He studied at the Golden Gate University School of Law, studied physics and women's studies at UCLA, but we know that women's studies can't really be women's studies anymore. We'll talk about that. He was on the SUSD Saga School Board for at least one term. I think that was 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, David. Ran for city council last year, and David is a fan of cigars, Cuba, and communism, and exactly not in that order. And full disclosure, just to let you guys know out there, David did agree to attend our church services last year before the election, and he did make it through about the first 1/3 before leaving, unfortunately. But David Barlavi Say hello to the folks out there.
The holy host.
Yes.
I could not wipe the smile off my face.
It was
after
intentional
said
for
that.
you.
And I've got to give you great job with that one. That's not just for today, right? You use that all the time?
That's kind of my little shtick.
I love
That's
it.
my
That's
shtick.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Bravo. Well, it's an honor to be here. I was very happy when you asked me to be on your show, and I'm very excited about it. And when I left your church, you had invited me to come talk about my campaign.
Yeah.
So afterward, I stayed as long as I could before I had to go somewhere else. So it wasn't like I was abandoning stuff.
Well, I appreciate
that.
that.
And I got to tell you, I love your sense of humor. I love how you bring it to your church, and I really enjoyed the time I spent there. So thank you so much.
I thought so too. I don't know if Lorraine West laughed as much as you did that day, but
it's okay. It's okay.
That's okay. Maybe
not
she doesn't-
everybody has my infinite sense of humor. So
that's true,
okay.
and not everyone gets my biting wit.
Right.
So, that's the other thing.
Right.
Well, David, give us a little context about you. What makes David Barlavi click, and I guess more importantly, what caused you to make the decision to run last year in 2022?
What makes me click? Okay, so let's start with that. I think first and foremost, I'm a family man.
Coach David.
Coach Dave. Yeah, that's a good one to remember to talk about, too. I'm a family man. I've been married for almost 30 years to my wonderful wife, who's going to hate me for coming on the air because she's going to think I'm going to potentially run for office again, and I just want to guarantee her I'm not going to run for office again, so don't worry about that.
You want to keep your sanity.
Absolutely.
And your wife happy.
And my wife happy. Absolutely. I have two wonderful children, a daughter and a son, and my daughter has given me the greatest gift of all time, which is my grandson.
Amen.
And she's about to give us, in September, our first granddaughter, too.
Wonderful.
So that, I would say, first and foremost, that's what defines me. Mm-hmm. Secondly, by profession, I'm a tax, trust, and estate planning attorney here in Santa Clarita.
That is exciting, David.
Yeah, very exciting, very exciting. And I've been practicing since 2002. My office is right here in the industrial area on the corner of Scott and Stanford. And a lot of people know me as being an attorney in town. I'm also an avid cigar smoker. I've smoked with many, many great people in town, had many great conversations with them. And in fact, I appreciate you saying that one day maybe you will come down and enjoy a cigar with me.
I will cough my way through it, just for you.
I will show you how to do it so it won't bother you nearly as much as you think.
That is good. I know that we have some differences politically. I know we have some differences religiously.
Really?
And one of the things I wanted to demonstrate was that we could have this conversation and still separate amicably. Because obviously, we live in a time today where everyone has to be mortal enemies with one another.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily want it to be that way. I would like for people to disagree, but then, still be able to have a hamburger afterwards, especially if it's on David.
Yeah.
But be able to fellowship and be able to have a life with each other. Because, for years, to be honest, David, I've got friends in the ministry that I don't always agree with on some finer points of the Bible. I've got some friends on the political aisle that may not be where I am on some things. But I still consider them friends. I still consider them acquaintances. And I try not to, shove them out of my life. And so when word got out to a few of my friends that I was going to have you on, they says, "What are you thinking?" And I says, "Well, it's a good demonstration that you don't have to agree on all the broader points or even some of the finer points, but still have an amicable relationship."
I agree with that, and I think that's what America has been all about, and we've come to a bad time in our history, I think, the last few years, and I hope we can get out of it and have those amicable relationships again. Mm-hmm. But I think it stems from a lot of it from social media and people who think irrational thoughts and don't really think very logically, having a platform now.
Yeah.
Okay, and getting their voice out there much louder and much more prevalent in society than before. That certainly doesn't help. It also goes to our school systems not really focusing on teaching critical thinking. So when our kids are growing up, they're not able to take what other people say apart and make sure that it's valid and it's evidence-based and that it's not just hearsay or their opinion. And then, finally, Americans in our souls were protectors. Even though we've had a history that it's a little torrid, and we can discuss. But in our hearts, we're protectors. So when we see a certain class of people wanting to be harmed in some way, there are some of us that step up and say, hey, we shouldn't approach it that way. That, even though that may come from a personal belief, expounding on that personal belief publicly hurts other people. So we need to explain that to each other, that it's okay to hold certain personal beliefs, but putting them out into society could possibly hurt people more than we want it to. So I think that's also a third factor involved with what's going on.
Give us a little bio of David Barlavi. Where were you born? Where were you born? To whom were you born to? What was your upbringing like, David?
Sure. I was born in Tehran, Iran in 1969, and I was born to my mom, Essie Barlavi, and my dad, Manucher Barlavi, and they're both doing great. Hung out with both my mom and dad today, earlier this morning.
And I know that your dad's had some medical issues.
He has. He's in rehab now. That's where we went to visit him in rehab today.
Great.
And hopefully he'll be released in the next maybe a week or so, and he'll be able to come back home.
Are you taking your drink of water because you need to have a drink of water, David?
A
little cottonmouth?
I am. I'm talking too much, which is one of my problems. So ask me yes or no questions. Okay?
Oh, no. I wanted more of the bio. I need the bio. So, born in Tehran.
Moved here in 1979, right smack in the middle of the revolution, where in Iran went from a secular but Muslim society to a fundamentalist religious regime and murderous regime. So we got out just in time. My family flew out to San Francisco, and we lived there for a while before we moved to Los Angeles. Most of my childhood, I would probably identify as an athlete. I was involved in a lot of sports, and I really enjoyed. Ultimately, swimming became my number one sport, so I swam. And then after that, like you said earlier, I went to UCLA, studied physics and women's studies. It's called gender studies now at UCLA. And after that, I finished law school and have been a lawyer since, with a wonderful family. I've also been a political activist since probably the early 90s, maybe even the late 70s. If I think back, my earliest involvement was in the Dolphin Safe Tuna campaign at UCLA, where they were catching dolphins with the tuna fish, and sometimes you'd even end up with dolphins in your tuna cans. So we turned Westwood, all the restaurants there, dolphin safe. And then came the Rodney King beating. I was a little bit involved in that. And then ultimately, I would say what really launched me was the first Iraq War with the elder Bush. And that's when I really started in the protesting and organizing, and it just took off from there over the years. And I've done many politically active things.
So what would you say, David, was your main political information mechanism that kind of made you more of a guy of a left? How exactly did that kind of develop or evolve? Or how would you define your politics? Let people it that way instead of branding you.
Yeah, I became involved in an organization called Radical Women, and they're a very leftist organization, and they taught me a lot about socialism, as you said earlier, and what it really means to fight for women's reproductive rights, what it means to really fight for LGBTQ plus rights, what it means to fight for immigrant rights, things of that nature. And I think that's where I really became a leftist. Although, if you want to go before that, being the first male graduate from UCLA with a degree in women's studies, didn't hurt either. So
that is
I
true.
was the first male graduate from UCLA with a degree in women's studies. Absolutely. In fact, when I graduated, it was still a specialization. So on my diploma, it says specialization in women's studies. It's not even a minor.
I didn't even realize that about you, and I feel so special today that now I've got you here.
So that taught me a lot, and that was tough. I came in from high school with a lot of chauvinistic tendencies. I was afraid of LGBTQ community. I didn't have the right impression of women and how to treat them in a lot of ways, although I was very respectful.
Sure.
But, it hadn't been fine-tuned. And I've explained being in my first 3 or 4 women's studies classes, like that old Memorex commercial, if you remember. You're probably old enough to remember, where the guy's sitting on that couch and it's blowing him away like a hurricane.
Yeah.
It felt like that. It was just getting information about.
How many people right now remember Memorex?
Memorex too. As soon as I said that, your eyes lit up. You knew what I was talking about. So yeah, that's what it felt like. And then finally, I realized. That's when I came to a realization of how I want to live my life and how I want to treat other people with respect and the dignity that they deserve, and that rights are meant to be equal and for everyone, and not just for me and who I want it to be for.
Sure.
Things of that nature. So yeah.
Well, let's demonstrate to the crowd that we can be civil on some points. I'll give you a situation in my life, and let's have a discussion about it.
Great.
A few years ago, I have a first cousin, who actually came out of the closet, and he was gay. We kind of assumed a little bit prior to this. And again, like I said, David, he's my first cousin, and he'll always be my cousin, and I'll always love him as my cousin. And I remember he called me maybe, 5 years or so after the Obergefell decision where gay marriage was allowed. And he said, Jerry, I know you're probably going to say no.
I know what he's going to ask.
But I want to give you the opportunity. And I said, Jonathan, I know what you're going to ask me because I know who you've been with the last few years. And I says, I'm going to have to respectfully bow out of that.
Well, you would probably catch on fire immediately. You would have to
at least my hair.
Stop, drop, and roll.
At least my hair.
That's totally understandable.
We can already tell that there's some kindling up there right now. I'm a little envious of yours, David. But anyway, but I had to respectfully bow out. But I reaffirmed to Jonathan, my cousin, I said, listen, though we disagree, I still love you. You'll always be my cousin. You'll always be welcome to anything that I do, or hopefully I'm welcome to anything you do. But I can't affirm the lifestyle choice that you've made. How is what I said civil? Or should I have been, in your view, should I have gone a little further?
What did you mean by I can't affirm it?
Well, I don't agree with the lifestyle.
In what way don't you agree? Like, what do you not agree with?
I do not agree with a man and a man marrying. And not only is it, would I consider it biblically wrong, and I understand we have a difference there as well, but I just don't see any benefit or any contribution to society other than a monogamous relationship.
I'm assuming you're straight as an arrow.
That's
like
me.
me.
That's what my wife says.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So that's how we grew up.
She seems to be comfortable with that.
Never in our minds could we ever imagine doing anything like that with a man, right? You would agree with me?
I would say that because of sin and because of the sin nature, that it's very possible that we could definitely fall into that.
But you
behavior.
didn't, right?
I didn't.
Yeah.
Shane, are you trying to tell me something?
2 minutes left?
We got 2 minutes? We have 2 minutes to deal. We have 2 minutes. No, just for this segment to deal with all of life. So go ahead, David.
So the way I look at it is, I am so straight, and I cannot imagine ever doing anything. Can I say sexual on the air?
Yeah, you can.
With a man.
Just don't cuss.
Or having anything sensual with a man. That is so against everything in my brain.
Sure.
That if a man tells me that that's how they feel about women, how could I possibly tell them that they need to be different? That's like them telling me, hey, you should be with a man, which would freak me out. Like, it would literally... You ever watch Star Trek? Star Trek had, like
The original.
went to different worlds and they had different. Like if I went to a world
Beam me
or a
up, David.
country or something, where all of a sudden I was in a 90% gay or 80, 95, and they told me I had to be with a man, I would commit suicide.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. It's not in me. So I would never wish that on someone else.
Well, I don't want David to commit suicide. When we come back on the air here, we're going to discuss a little bit about the whole Pride Month thing and see if there's anything about it that they've kind of gone too far on their end, and see if David would agree with me on a few things here on KHTS on your hometown station. We'll be back in a minute with Politics in the Pulpit. All right, we're back here live on Politics in the Pulpit here on KHTS, your hometown station. And yes, we are still talking with David Barlavi. He did not rush off and say he had something to do like he did at our church last year.
Oh, you're cute. I'm sorry if I hurt you, man.
You know, I'm still getting over it. I've been going through a lot of counseling just to get over that.
No, but on all seriousness, if you watched me go and you were like, man, I wish you would have stayed, I do apologize for that.
You know what? I'll invite you again, and you'll stay for the whole service.
A lot of times I just don't know any better, and I just do stuff, and I should have done differently.
It's
and
okay,
I do apologize
Dave. It's
for that.
okay. It was the first time we met that day. Now we're a little more comfortable with each other, and I think in the future it might be different.
Next time I come over, I'm going to help clean up.
I appreciate
I'll be on the
that.
cleanup crew.
I appreciate that. Well, let's get into this because this is our last segment. This is a short segment, but David, could I get a quick commitment from you that you will come back on?
This is fun.
Good.
I'm enjoying this.
Great.
Absolutely.
I think it's good for our guys on the right, guys on the left to see that this can happen.
To have a great conversation.
I think so. So let's talk about, it's Pride Month, and we've got the debauchery thing going on with Bud Light. We've got the things going on with Target. We've got, Kohl's and all these other organizations doing what they're doing. Let me ask you a question. Obviously, you're a supporter of LGBTQ rights and all that stuff. Is there, in your opinion, a limit? How far can they go before David Barlavi says, yeah, I support you, but I think you might be taking it a little too far? Is there a point when that would ever happen, or has that happened already? In your mind?
I mean, generally speaking, if any movement per se starts to impede on other people's rights, that's not good. But that's definitely not what's ever happened, in my opinion.
Okay.
And obviously, trading on other people's opinions is not the same thing as their rights.
Sure.
But I guess if LGBTQ got enough power and they started to say that you can't straight marry or something, that would be terrible, or something like that. Yeah, but no, I've never thought that anything's gone too far, unless you have something specific in mind. That you
No,
ask me
I was
about.
just wanting to ask you.
I've never seen that.
You did physics and women's studies at UCLA, which now is called gender studies, as you correctly noted earlier. Let me ask you a question. This is not me being mean, but can biological men, menstruate? I knew you'd laugh.
You asked the funniest question.
I just want to know.
This is fantastic. Can
a biological man menstruate?
Oh, I love this guy.
Have you?
I have never menstruated.
Neither have I. Let's high five on that one, all right? Okay, we're good.
You can't, and I just don't even understand where that question came from, but I absolutely loved it.
Well, the reason why I say that is
Okay,
because we've got guys on the other side of the aisle that will say that a trans person can menstruate, who is a biological male who transitioned, and now they can menstruate. And now we've got this push in some of our schools to put women's menstruation products in both bathrooms. Do you now? There's an example.
I've never heard that.
All right,
and I can't even imagine biologically how that would work. Because
I agree.
Menstruation involves the whole ovaries and the whole getting the eggs coming out, and I mean, you there's no such surgery even you could do for that.
David Barlavi and Pastor Cook completely agree on that.
But yeah,
there is
people
this.
do have vivid imaginations.
Well.
So, maybe they're talking about...
My wife has probably thought, I've had a little...
I got it. It's menstruate.
There it is.
Not menstruate.
Yeah, there it is.
You just misheard it.
I figure I misheard it, yeah. David Barlavi, what's the plan for the future? Is there a plan to run again? Is there a plan?
No.
What is David
No,
Barlavi
I
want to
promised
do?
my wife I would run till I lose,
Uh-huh.
and I was a one-hit wonder. So I'm done. If I break that promise to my wife,
Forgive the way I put this, one and done.
one and done. Well,
Yeah.
I like one-hit wonder better.
Okay, all right, I
At
got
least, yeah, exactly.
I think Shane got
But it
one and
wasn't
done.
one and done because I would have kept going if I would have kept winning. So that's done. My practice is going great. I love my clients.
Should you have won last year, what would you have done?
Yes, I should have won last year. Good question.
Should you have won, I said.
Yes.
Should you have won last year, what would you have done differently than what is currently being done in City Council?
I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. You'd have to ask me specifically what they're
Okay.
doing.
What in our community would you want changed, specifically here in Santa Clarita? Or added, for that matter?
Yeah, I think that for one, Henry Mayo needs a lot more support than they're getting, and
Okay.
the employees of Henry Mayo
Okay.
need a lot more support than they're getting. They really saved many local people's lives and hung in there during the COVID disaster, and we owe them a great debt of gratitude. And recently laying off 5.5% or 100 of their employees, to me, is very disgraceful.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if I would have said, let's see if there's other options available that we can help them with.
Do you think our community is safe?
Safe, crime-wise?
Crime-wise.
Yeah, I think we're very safe.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that recently we've had a big white truck driving around town with a white power flag on it, flying.
Really?
Yeah, white power, and then it's got the "Don't Tread on Me," and then I think a Confederate flag.
What
or
does the
something
white
like that.
power flag look like? I don't think I've seen one.
It's black.
Completely
I think-
black.
Yeah, completely black, and it says white power on top.
If you
So
see that
I think
next
that's
time,
pretty.
if you see that next time, you need to take a picture on your phone and post that.
I almost got a picture of it, but it's just he just drives by, so
Okay.
I haven't got a picture yet. But
I'll
yeah.
keep my eye out for that guy too.
Yeah, so it's pretty disgraceful, and I think as a city council member, I would have probably spoken out against that, and not really much you could do because in America we have the First Amendment,
Yeah.
and people have the right to do that.
Even
but
when we disagree.
you can counter it.
Yeah.
You can counter it as a city and show love and understanding, and that we don't believe in Nazism and fascism.
I agree with both of those sentiments. And by the way, what does David Barlavi think of biblical Christianity? You have 1 minute.
What do I think of?
What do you think of biblical Christianity, the Christianity that I represent?
Yeah. So, I am mostly an atheist. So I'm a physicist by education. So it's very difficult for me to subscribe and have a conversation about God and all the biblical stories and stuff. But I do believe in people's rights to have faith and believe in whatever they want. Of course, as long as we don't use those to impede on other people's rights. But I certainly believe in that, and I have never even thought twice about people not having that right. But personally, it's very difficult for me to believe in an entity for which there's no proof. So I would just that's my personal belief. But I'm traditionally Jewish, so I have traditional Jewish faith and practices and things.
Well,
like that.
the next
So
time
I
you
think
come
it's
on,
okay.
maybe we could probably engage in the first half of the show about that conversation, and maybe I can move you into the agnostic position.
Well, I probably don't even know what the difference between atheism and agnosticism is, but you could probably explain that to me. But I could tell you, we could definitely talk about it, and I can talk to you about how physics predicts the existence of a God.
Well,
So,
we'll
yeah.
definitely have that
Okay.
conversation. I appreciate the fact that David came in today, and he has committed to come back in the future. And again, you can visit his law offices right here in Santa Clarita, or if you need his tax advice, you can visit his offices as well. And thank you for joining us today. Next week, we will have Mayor Jason Gibbs here to talk about the whole redistricting situation. Thank you for tuning in today on your hometown station. This is Pastor Cook signing off. Take care.